What's going on, Fantasy Alarm Nation? Justin Fensterman back with you. It's time for another episode of Fantasy Football ADP TV. You've got drafts, I've got players. Let's get right down to the action and talk about who we're focusing on. First, for a few players trending up, at least to me, Kadarius Toney. The guy only played in 10 games last year, but secured nearly 11 yards per catch. Daniel Jones is healthy as well, and Coach Dable has mentioned that he wants Jones throwing more aggressively, and that should give Toney more opportunities on the outside. The Giants don't have a lot of strong receiver depth, and as we talked about issues surrounding Kenny Golladay in last week's ADP TV, Wan'Dale Robinson will be working out of the slot, and we'll have to see how Brian Dable and the Giants coaching regime utilizes Sterling Shepard. And Kadarius Toney, as the team's number one receiver, he's currently going in the 8th round of 12-team leagues. A nice value there. Another player whose ADP I like right now, Kmet, the tight end from the Bears. He's sitting in the double-digit rounds and was targeted 93 times and logged over 10 yards per reception last year. He didn't score any touchdowns last year, but was targeted in the red zone in 7 of his final 10 games, and he ran a lot more routes later in the season too. Besides Darnell Mooney, who will draw top coverage every game from the opposing defense, who's Justin Fields throwing to? Velus Jones will be in the mix. Yes, he's a rookie. Montgomery will catch a few passes as well, but there's no reason to think that Kmet shouldn't be in the hundreds when it comes to targets for the year. Final player I'm a bit more interested in, Raheem Mostert. Have a lot of shares of Mostert. Does he have injury risk? Yes. Mostert has hit double digits in games played just once in his last 4 years, but it's the 13th round where he's going. Sony Michel is off the squad, and if Mostert can stay on the field, he'll punch in some scores. Mostert actually has averaged 5.7 yards per carry for his career, and he has excellent speed. And he also has familiarity with Coach Mike McDaniel, who used to be the 49ers run game and offensive coordinator while Mostert was in San Francisco. Another question that rises when talking about the Dolphins run game. Will Chase Edmonds get a lot of usage in the red zone with Mostert there? We've seen teams go away from Edmonds in that area in the past, so we'll have to see. But Mostert, when it comes to within that 10-yard line, should be utilized to rush in scores. Now for some players who I've seen dip a little bit when it comes to average draft position. Let's start with Najee Harris. I've seen him go from being a top 7 pick contender to the tail end of the first round in more recent drafts. Why is that? Sprained Liz Frank that was recently reported. Yikes. But he has been playing, and also the Steelers have had offensive line issues in the last couple of years, which also could work against Harris and the appeal that he has. Rushed for fewer than 4 yards per carry last year, but let's not forget the 94 targets he received, and he caught 74 passes last year in Pittsburgh's offense. Pittsburgh should be a little bit more dynamic now that Ben Roethlisberger and his noodle arm is gone, and while they're taking more shots downfield, the entire focus from the defense won't be on Harris. They'll have to look at other players as Mitch Trubisky, Kenny Pickett will take shot. Another running back trending down, J.K. Dobbins. As much as we don't know if he'll play in week 1, the weeks after that are even more concerning. The Ravens have multiple running backs they can utilize, including Mike Davis, Kenyon Drake, who they just signed, Gus Edwards a little bit later on when he's healthy. Oh, and let's not forget Lamar Jackson, who will run plenty, especially with a lighter receiving core. We've heard reports throughout the summer that Baltimore may not fully utilize Dobbins until he proves that he can stay healthy, meaning he's probably not looking at a full workload for most of the first half of the fantasy season. Final running back drop in a bit, Cam Akers. I get it, he hasn't been the healthiest running back in his first 2 seasons. Reports have come out that Akers could be in a 50-50 carry split with Darrell Henderson. The Rams O-line is pretty protective, and I just can't forget how Akers did when he was healthy back at Florida State a few years ago, having 2,000-yard seasons behind a weak offensive line. He could be active in the passing game as well, and you could draft him in the 5th round potentially in 12-team leagues. If you draft him after drafting 2 other running backs, less risk applies to drafting Cam Akers, and I'm still in on that.